That's amazing that all these people out here who are our friends and people we don't know, like, look for this completely exciting moment of this book. What do you want to say, Joe?
I thought I'm kind of overwhelmed. It's amazing to me. Like having this come back out is like a dream come true. Like it's something, even like a dream that I didn't think was going to come true. So I'm very happy and also nervous and excited.
And at this point, I think we were. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, it's a good question. I guess, can I really should start with our joke beginning though, which was, is your family ashamed of you? They should be.
Yeah,
But it's not true. They've already all ordered the books and have already sent pictures.
yeah. My family has this text string that they do, and it drives me crazy. And if I don't respond to it in a few days, they call and say, "Are you okay? Are you sick? What's going on?" And so today I told them that it was the big day, and I said I'm sorry that I wasn't sending them all free copies of the book. And they wrote back and said they'd all pre-ordered it already. They sent me pictures of it coming in the mail. Yeah.
Great. I guess I had two thoughts. One, we're going to talk a little bit, and then Joe's going to read bits of the book, and then we'll talk more about what he's read, and so on, and what he's read, and what this book is. But I think just like I found myself like just thinking about this conversation. I guess I put some of this in the introduction, thinking about this. We've lived through this pandemic that we're all sick of now. And yeah, one of the weirdest parts of the pandemic was when people would talk about, this has never happened before. And you were like, oh my God, who were you in the 90s? We were here when all our friends were dying. And so there's a way in which it's sort of like AIDS is new again, and this book, is so written right in the heart of that. And so I found myself looking at other writers like Boccaccio wrote in Decameron during the play. Shakespeare was writing during the play. But interestingly, those guys, I believe, all went to the country and wrote. And even the books were even about people who were away from the play. And the thing that's so completely unique about this book is that it's not, most of the book is pre-AIDS. And then it comes, thunderously. It was kind of happening to kind of older guys, and then suddenly your friends, and then, and then you were living with it yourself. But I think when we were sitting back there in the orange green room, you were saying, because we were talking about you writing it, and I think you said perhaps that while you were writing the book, you got sick the first time.
Yeah, I was like halfway through, and it was at 1995, and I wound up in the hospital on the AIDS ward it's not like the hospital isn't even there, but it's on the west side. Yeah, St. Luke's Roosevelt. Yeah, and I was on the AIDS ward, and that was in July, and it was like I write about this also. It was 104 degrees outside, and I had a 104-degree temperature inside. Half the people on that ward died that summer, and the other half lived and got the antivirals thing in the fall. So I was lucky enough to make it through and keep on writing the book.
Yeah. And what was the motivation for writing the book in the first place? When did you start writing it? And
I moved here in 1987, and I think I started writing it. I was working in the evenings, and I would come home after work. I would write for a while, and I wrote a lot of letters to my friends about moving to New York and stuff. I started writing then, but I wasn't thinking I was writing a book. I was just writing about what had happened. And part of why I wrote it was I just have to. There is just something in me that had to come out. And I went on disability from my job. It was maybe 92 or 93. I forget which. That gave me time. I was still healthy, but the T cells, they were dropping, and that's how the level of your T cells is how you got the AIDS diagnosis. And I was under the number. So I worked in the evening, so I kept I went to the writer's wing, which is right down the street at, Astor Place and Broadway. And it's open 24 hours, and you could go and write as much as you liked, and you have your own little desk you can sit at. But, I was already in work mode, so I just went the station schedule that I went already and kept going. And another part of it was because I quit drinking and doing drugs right before I moved here. And all my friends here knew me as not drinking and kind of this nice guy who hung out with people who were drinking but didn't drink. So I didn't tell them what I'd been through, and that I actually wasn't wild God and had a crazy life before I moved here. So those are like two of the big reasons. So.
And then later, so you got out of the hospital, you got better, and then you kept writing, and then you actually finished the book, right?
Yes.
And then you got sick again. I mean, I guess this really is not the point of our conversation, I don't think, but it's interesting because I think you're such a marathoner. It's sort of like, unlike other relationships to pandemics and this, I think you kept writing in the midst of it, and it's about it, and you're inside of it. I mean, I felt like the book, in a way, was a harbor from the experience of all those things.
Yeah.
Wow. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I was writing about the time that it already happened. Like that was a lot of what I wrote about in the AIDS part of the book was in the early mid 80s. So this was the early mid 90s, and things were changing, and but it was like a place to go to. And it was also, I was able to remember my friends. That was another reason I wanted to write it. I really thought my friends of this thing we went through should be remembered. And there was a lot of attention about like AIDS as a horrible thing. And the headlines of this like AIDS in big letters and stuff, but they didn't really get that. Like part of it was this. What we had was this closeness that was like this incredible, like taking care of each other and loving each other and like finding our way through this nightmare and kind of clinging to each other. And I didn't feel like that was getting talked about as much. And also that like we also were having a lot of fun at the same time, like when we weren't getting AIDS. And so it was like, we kind of weren't supposed to talk about the fact that we were still doing drugs and having these like sets and stuff. And I wrote about that part. I felt like people needed to know that was going on.
And now, we're sitting. I mean, I love this book because it's so kind of it's fat and it's sort of comic booky looking. It looks like you can put like 3D glasses on, and it was like, but it's great. And FSG is such a great publisher, and I think what's so beautiful and important too is that like, so at the moment when you finish the book, I mean, often I think as writers, it's sort of like you're working on a book for a while, and then you've got to do that last stretch, and it's really hard to have that last stretch, and I think it often is accomplished because there was a publisher, and so it was so. This is so amazing, but this wouldn't have happened if there wasn't a guy named Bill Sullivan, who was a painter who, his father died or something, and he inherited $50,000. And instead of living on it for 2 years, he decided to publish gay writing. Mm-hmm. And so he published, you were quite fucking sick at that time. And then he published the book. It was like, he would do it right away. It was kind of an amazing, kind of almost old school alternative publishing moment, but I think if not for that happening, this wouldn't happen, because I think that made the book become book, Do you have anything?
It's not how like,
Is that a question? No, that's just me getting excited.
No, the press, it was painfully pressing. He did a lot of poetry, and he did Before Night Falls by Ronaldo Arenas. He was friends with, and he didn't publish Before Night Falls, but he published other things by him. And when I went to meet with him, I saw that was like, he had a manuscript by Ronaldo Arenas on the table. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm sitting here with that. And at the end, he was willing to publish me. So, and so I tried other places before him, actually. I tried Ferrara Scouts Giroux, and I called him, and the receptionist was really sweet to me, and she told me that I needed an agent to talk to their editor, and maybe I should try to find an agent, and I should keep writing and call back in 3 or 5 or 10 years. So,
And how many years is it?
yeah, 20, almost 25, but yeah, it's like, and that's another thing. This is not the point, that it was part of, like, with a friend of mine, we do this thing called the pink bubble technique, and it's a creative visualization. And when I was looking for a publisher, she and I, we did the pink bubble technique, and I said, I needed an agent, editor, a publisher, and I said I wanted Ferrara Strauss, and actually this is MCD Press, which is a sub and of Ferrara Strauss. So it's really MCD Press that I'm with. But anyway, I put all that in a pink bubble, and I floated it off to the universe, and I said, this is something better is coming to me for the good of all concerned. And then not much happened after that. And like Bill took me on and published the book, then he got it out with bookstores, and but then now, like, it's almost 25 years later, and everything that was in that bubble train plucked down in my lap like 2 years ago, thanks to Eileen, who took my book. And I had like RSV when everybody else was having COVID. I caught RSV, and I was really sick, and Eileen came over, and she said, we got it. And she talked to me about this before, that we had to try to get my book republished, and we needed to get it out there. And I thought, maybe someday after I die, it would be discovered, and that would be printed, and people will wonder who I was, and stuff like that's what. She's like, no. She said, I had 2 copies left besides my own copies. I had 2 extra copies. So she took them, and she took them to her agent and to Jackson Howard, the editor, and from there, it started happening. But it's because of what I'm doing.
I really thank Chris for it.
Yeah. But please don't read me a manuscript. I think this is totally the moment. So we have so many things about the book itself that I think you should read. For anybody who actually doesn't know the book, you should read a piece of it right now.
Okay. I've been trying to decide what to read, and I thought I figured out what I was going to read. Yeah, I've been practicing and stuff. And then Eileen texted me today, and she said she found another passage that she liked.
Yeah, that's not. I was just saying my language. I was not trying to choose.
See, I'm telling you what to do. So anyway, I'm not quite as practiced and refined as reading this as I was the other stories. And so here we go. This chapter is called Lands In. It's in the San Francisco section. Okay. Things weren't going our way. Between the mess with Mildred and the shock of the earthquake, we decided to leave San Francisco. After a few weeks, the initial charm of the city had worn off, and we found ourselves trapped in a depressing neighborhood with a freaked out family. My nurse friend Patsy had moved from Kansas City to Seattle. I called her from the payphone on the corner to see if we could stay with her for a while. I wished that I'd moved to New York like I wanted to. Why did I let Ollie talk me into moving to the West Coast when I really wanted to be 3,000 miles away? Patsy said it was okay for me to come up there. We started calling car rentals and drive-away places and found out that there were no drive-aways available going to Seattle, and we didn't have a credit card, so we couldn't rent a car. We couldn't take a bus because we had too much junk. We were stuck in San Francisco. Eileen made friends with Terry, a self-described maladjusted young adult who lived in a welfare hotel on the corner. He was a 6-foot-tall, big-boned, 25-year-old child. He stopped by sometimes to split a Coke with whoever was at home. He'd bring one Coke and want to split it and then hang out most of the afternoon. I usually didn't mind since I didn't know anyone. He told us about the wonders of California General Assistance and Social Security Insurance, GA and SSI, which he went on after his parents quit supporting him. I played records for him while he sat and stared out the window, sipping his Coke. After hearing Terry talk about what a great thing public assistance was, Ali and I decided to apply for it. My wallet had been stolen in New Orleans, and so I had no ID, and they wouldn't give it to me. Ali got food stamps and a monthly bus pass. One advantage of living near welfare hotels was the great thrift stores nearby. We both loved rummaging through them and found everything we needed for our home, as well as new additions to our wardrobes for next to nothing. Ali said, since we were new in town, we should change our looks. He had his hair bright red, and I dyed mine blue-black. Ali liked to hang out in gay bars of the Castro district and started bringing home tricks, just like New Orleans, just like Kansas City. He told me if I wanted a man, I'd have to clone out. Castro clones were the gays who wore jeans, Lacoste shirts, and hung out primarily in the Castro district. Their uniform style was a revolt from the fashion of San Francisco's hippie days, which was still predominant. I told Ali that I didn't want a man bad enough to lose my identity. I hated it that everyone had mustaches, so I didn't have sideburns because no one else wore them. The clones wore tight blue jeans, so I wore dress slacks. They wore tight t-shirts, so I wore button-down collar dress shirts and briskets. I waged my own personal war for individualism. I wore my green iridescent sharkskin suit with pants to match almost every day. Sometimes we put on drag shows for each other. One day, we cleaned the house in drag and pretended all that he was the next door neighbor who dropped by for tea in the middle of my house there. I vacuumed the floor in my yellow shift and spiked heels while Ali sat in an antique ballerina tutu and sipped tea. One day, Ali and I bumped into Terry, our emotionally disturbed neighbor, after a Chris store shopping spree, and invited him back up to our apartment for a drag show. Ali pulled his curly red hair over to one side to do his number, Bonnie Pointer's sultry disco hit, Free Me From My Freedom, Tie Me to a Tree and Handcuff Me. Wearing this black fringed mini dress. Anyway, in the middle of my part of the show, Terry jumped up and asked, "We're all Christians here, aren't we? We're all Christians." Nodding his head and smiling like this is okay as long as we're all Christians. And me and my yellow shift, having just eloquently lip-synced Julie Andrews' original song, My Favorite Things from The Sound of Music, assured him that no, we were in fact like him, maladjusted young adults. That seemed to satisfy him. Since I was broke and couldn't go out much, I spent most of my time listening to records. The lead singers of the bands I listened to became my friends. They knew how I felt. I sang along with them and started to write lyrics for when I got a band together, which was something I thought about a lot. But since I didn't play any musical instruments, it never seemed to happen. I went on long walks until I got bored with them. I would look in restaurants and see friends together. I knew from previous living experiences that in time I would have friends. I just wished I could speed up that time. One day, Ali came home all excited about part of the city beach he discovered and made me promise to go there with him the next day. We took an old dark green cucumber-shaped streetcar out past Golden Gate Park to the beach at the end of the line. That place was not my idea of what a California beach should look like. The sand was a dirty gray with lots of washed up seaweed. There were no surfers or blonde beach kids running around. Still, I love being by the Pacific. It soothed my spirit to breathe the ocean air. Up a steep hill was Land's End, next to Cliff House, a restaurant where tourists took pictures of a tiny island covered with barking seals waiting to be fed. Ali led me through the restaurant parking lot into bushes at the far end, a trail that led to a spectacular view of the Pacific Ocean from a cliff. The succulent iceberg plants with small, bright blue flowers covered the ground. It was foggy out on the water, blending the green horizon of the sea into the gray sky. As Ali led me around the trail, I hugged the wall of the cliff that extended about 40 feet above us as well as below. Turbulent water churned between boulders at the base of the cliff. I had to look down at my feet to be sure I wouldn't lose my footing. I was afraid there would be an earthquake and we'd get tossed suddenly over the edge and down into the water below, only to get dashed against the rocks by a tidal wave. Ali said, if you have to go, that's a great way to do it. After a few treacherously narrow twists and turns, we came to a wide plain in the trail. To the left was the vast Pacific Ocean. To the right was the rust-colored Golden Gate Bridge that went across into the marine headlands, with its golden hills and cliffs. I stopped and sat down on the edge of the trail, high above the water. I looked off in the distance at the ocean. I wanted to stay there longer, but Ali insisted we move on. He had to show me his favorite spot. We got to a point in the trail that had been broken by fallen rocks and debris from past earthquakes. The cliff tilted at an angle, becoming a steep, rocky slope. These rocks made the trail barely invisible. We hiked up to an abandoned house that leaned at a 45-degree angle and was sunken partially into the ground. Someone had made a makeshift home. Inside was a beat-up metal coffee pot, a couple of wet, dirty blankets, and some ripped canvas gum-soled shoes. Up and over one more slope, and we were there, a secluded near beach. A few naked guys were stretched out on towels, but not many. Ali told me he had been there on a sunny day, and it was packed with beautiful men. Directly behind the beach was a steep rise covered with trees and bushes with a trail that went up to the top of the cliff. High above, a few peeping Toms were looking down with binoculars for naked bodies. Otherwise, there was hardly anyone there. Tourists didn't know much about this place. Men cruised in the bushes up above. I followed Ali up the trails into the undergrowth and cruised around with him for a while, crawling under bushes and over broken branches. I got bored and went down to the water. It was low tide, so I walked out to some giant boulders. Ali came down from the bushes, and we walked along the rocky beach together. We talked about what we were going to do with ourselves and the new people we meet and what was next in our lives. Ali put his arm around me as he talked. He said he missed his grandmother and sister and wished they could be there enjoying the ocean with us. Yeah, I'd love it if my sister came out here too, I said. What about your parents? You want them to visit? Mine would freak out. They've hardly left the Midwest. They wouldn't know what to think of it here. My mom would be fine. I doubt my dad would come. Mom would be fine. Mom would like it though. We got as far away as home as we could without getting our feet wet. Hold on. What do you mean by that? I asked. Well, we went to New Orleans, didn't we? You can't go much further south than that from Missouri without winding up in the Gulf of Mexico. Now we're sitting here at Land's End, San Francisco, California. You can't get much farther west than that, can you? So we got as far away as we could without getting our feet wet. Ali laughed. Hey, Joe, want to? Want to what? Get our feet wet. It's kind of cold, isn't it? Well, who gives a fuck? We sat on the boulders down by the ocean and cracked up laughing as we took off our shoes and socks and rolled up our jeans. The cold sand was wet and soft beneath our feet as we walked slowly up to the water. Then we started to wade in. The first touch of water sent a cold shiver up my leg. I screamed and jumped back. Ali yelled too, but took a step deeper in. For a moment, we stood in the water, watching the waves smash against the giant boulders with the steep cliff at edge of the United States rising up behind us. The waves broke up before they reached the shore, so they weren't very big at our feet, just foaming. Ali waded out to mid-calf. I stood in one place as the icy water came up and surrounded my feet up to my ankles. Then it rolled back out, leaving the breeze to add the final freezing touch as it blew over my wet feet. The next wave came up and felt a little warmer, but the wind made me even colder when it rolled away. The sand under my feet started to slide out with the waves, causing me to almost lose my balance. I had to take a step forward or else get out of the water. Ali stretched out his hand to me and said, "Come on, Joe, what are you waiting for?" The third wave felt warm. I waded in deeper. That's it.
You do really good landscape. It's like soft painting. It's very matter of fact, but it's very embodied. How about you figure? And then you work from memory. How did you notebooks, or how do you remember that?
And it's mostly memory. Yeah. And I just like to do a little bit of detail, just not heavy duty detail.
But it's so interesting because it's so much about character. I mean, like this Ali this is kind of your buddies who would be this both in a way, it's like gay buddies, but Ali is very much the heroic character. And he's always kind of the, come on, let's go deeper. So it's
Always trying to get me in trouble.
and it's all kinds of trouble. It's good trouble, and it's like really kind of embodied. It's very, it's interesting in a weird way. It's almost more emotional on the page, which is, I think, is really interesting. Because like every step of it, as readers, we're sort of forced to go through each beat of it, and when you get to that end, because I think you're talking about. You're talking about politics in a way too. This like just to say the United States, weirdly gives me a strange shiver. Because what is the United States now? What does that mean? The borders of the nation. The fact that there's so much of it, the fact that we got there. And I'm not. Do you think much about politics when you think about landscape?
No, I don't.
That question.
Yeah, I didn't. I really don't.
Because elsewhere in the book you do the Mississippi River, which is incredibly moving as well.
Yeah. Well, it's a description of the country, and there's a lot of books about moving and traveling around the country, and what I saw as like a teenager in my early 20s, discovering it, or I don't know it's political in the fact that I did it, and
I guess that you could do, because people don't hitchhike around the country.
Yes, when I did it, it was like the end of the hitchhiking days. Yeah, I was saying that this one of the last years you could do it, and it was getting dangerous even then. I wouldn't recommend anybody do it today.
Because just as a literary, Kerouac did it in like 1957, and then this comes out 40 years, and it's like a different America. Even when you talk about the gay beach and this tourists don't know about it yet, and we know that it's probably a totally gentrified beach now. That's a location that has, so I guess what I'm trying to say, there's an innocence in the description too, without really meaning much by it. It's kind of all there. But you don't want to talk about and ask you about like, huh? You did say that there was an older gay writer, Felice Bacana, who died recently, who reviewed this book when it first came out.
Yes.
And he said something in particular. Do you remember what he said?
my friend Hugh remembers exactly what he said, and we kind of made a joke out of it over the years, but it was something like after he read the book and when he did the review, he said, "We have always known there were young gay men like this who lived paycheck to paycheck, and now we get to meet one of them."
Shocking.
Yeah. It was in print. So it was in print.
Yes.
It was shocking.
Yeah. And I mean, first of all, I can't believe that that's true. You know, that's so crazy.
We made it up. I said we made it up. It's not true.
But I mean, in his head, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that seems insane. Obviously, he knew, but you know. So I guess one of the huh?
No, I see why you mean.
Yeah.
But
When you talk very casually about this kid came over and drank half his Coca-Cola with you guys, and then he told you about going on SSI or going on, and it was like an idea. It was just a normal thing to do, and I don't think I've ever read that in a book, though. I mean, in fact, I think that is kind of amazing. And I mean, I think it's sort of like it's not reflected on much. I think the way you write is just inventory, not only. I mean, the landscape is that, but it's more than that. It's analytic. But I mean, something like that, you just drop it in there as a fact. And I think in some weird ways, I think something like that is almost more shocking than sex or drugs. Do you think, Sarah was saying?
well, at the time in San Francisco, it seemed like almost everyone I knew was on SSI or general systems, and it's something that was available, and you did it, and City College was free. And that was one of the great things about living in San Francisco at that time. Yeah.
And it was kind of a global condition. You were young, and so the government existed. It was not a poor country. So, of course, there was nothing wrong with, I mean, like, did it ever occur to you that there was anything morally wrong with getting money from the government?
Not at all.
You know?
That was great.
And I think that would really be a kind of pornography today for some people. Look at these like queers having drugs. And I mean, I just feel like it's like you don't think about it too much. And suddenly I thought, oh my God, this is actually highly unusual and also really alarming to some people in a certain way. You know, it's sort of like the thought that you shouldn't have that isn't your right, you know.
Yeah, and they want to take it away now. And actually, when I was living there, Ronald Reagan became governor of California, and he started like chipping away. And like we had to pay like $50 for a semester at City College, and then we had to pay $50 a class, and then we had to pay $50 a unit for the class. And so it disappeared a few years after that.
And I think that's all the secret space inside the book. You know, just all these tiny facts of these just irregular ways that people would live, which enabled this whole kind of panorama behavior.
It made it easier to move around, and the rent was really cheap too. Like we were always moving from one apartment to another, and we'd find a bigger apartment for the same price, or a better apartment for cheaper and stuff. But then people didn't think anything about it. Well,
But like what you say that I think is so important is that they made it so you could move around. I think it's really hard to move around right now, you know? I mean, like when I came to New York in the 70s, people were like, oh, it's really great in the 60s. You know, it's parking for $40. Now they pay like $120. But and it's sort of like it's slow. It gets it all invisibilized. And I think it's sort of like so much of what you've done here is the opposite of that, making visible conditions that were radically different and made radically different ways of experiencing yourself.
Yeah, I think I was just telling how well we did it. I wasn't thinking it was radical. I just thought this is what happened, and this is how we did it. But looking back, it seems radical.
Well, even thrifting, you know what I mean? Like it's sort of like, I don't know about in New York City, like it's June 2nd. Has anybody noticed a lot of furniture on the streets? I mean, like, right? It's like everybody who goes to college in New York now, it's just like you rent an apartment and then you move out of an apartment and you throw all the furniture on the street and it's all new furniture, you know? But it's like when you just casually say we went to a thrift store, you got all of your clothes. When I think about it, I mean, like,
We furnished our apartment, but like we had just moved from New Orleans to San Francisco, and we had a couch and beds and paintings on the walls and stuff, all of them for stores, dishes and pots and pans.
in like 3 days, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you believe it?
I guess so. I guess I find myself thinking of, you know, like in the UK, people talk about people being on a dole, you know, and it was the exact same thing. It was just a moment, and the young people were afforded by their governments a complete moment of youth, supporting youth, you know, and now it's like a radical idea that basic income should exist. But people can't quite wrap their minds around it, but it's what we're coming from.
I'm kind of like going someplace different,
Please.
but it's about, you know, the part of a lot of the book is leading up to the early days of the AIDS crisis. But when that happened, it was like nobody knew what to do, and the doctors didn't know what to do. And I don't know if this is in the book, but one doctor like was screaming out as we were like kind of freaking out. My friend was sick, and he said something about, well, I know as much as you do about this, and we're all trying to figure this out. And it's like we didn't have the government support at all, and they didn't want to even, like, Reagan wouldn't say the word AIDS for years when he was president, and it was all like friends, and early on, like the lesbian community and the gay men community was totally separate. And not totally, but we kept apart from each other a lot. And when AIDS hit, the lesbians came and started taking care of the sick men, and we all got together again. And but I worry now that with them cutting back all the healthcare and funding and research and all that it could go back to those kind of times when we have to depend on each other. So I don't know, it's just a thought, but I think that was a lot. I think that, you know, I started reading the book from the beginning to end recently. I haven't done that in years. And that was one thing that really stuck out to me. It was like how we were just like clinging to each other to get through this. And they talk about now with like with the dictatorship and all that, like how do we get through this? We can't depend on anybody, maybe the courts we can depend on, but it's like we have to depend on our community, and we have to depend on each other. And I think that is really true, and that's what we did back then.
I think we're getting, though it feels I think we're getting to where we're at the Q&A moment already. That was fast.
How quickly do you think it took for SSI to go away?
Like, I would say like 82 maybe, 83 and there.
I had no idea it existed.
It would sound like a very punk rock thing to be on SSI. and people hung out in San Francisco. There's a place called Cafe 4, and I was always amazed that it was packed in the middle of the day. I just straight out, it's there. Everybody was sitting, subsidized.
And you didn't need to have the disability to be on.
No, you just wanted to apply it, and if you didn't have a job and you needed help, they helped you.
How great issues. Let's think about that.
So how did you learn how to write? Because I love the way you write. It's just so direct and it's emotional, but without being forward, and it's so honest. I think it's like, I don't think people really write like this right now. And So that's why you know how to write.
Oh, well,
I mean, I know you're a great reader, so.
I enrolled in English 1A from one end of the country to the other. I enrolled at it 4 times. And when I was in high school, I had a college prep class where we learned how to write term papers or thesis papers, or not thesis papers, it's just essays. We had learned how to write essays. And English 1A in freshman college was the same class. So I kept thinking I should be able to test out of it, and I already had done it, so I dropped out because I didn't need it. And then it turned out I needed it to get credits to get other English classes. I finally passed it because instead of assigning the topic that you could write about, it said you could write about anything. And I wrote about proving that Emerson Map was really a Peruvian princess.
So, you know, I have to choose places for both of them.
But that's my release. Like official writing class I did. I did a memoir writing class with Henry Jones at the 92nd Street Y that was really helpful and helped me shake all the stuff that I was writing. But I mostly, I wrote letters, and I have a friend who's a painter who lives in Louisiana, and he moved back home and built a little studio that just painted and didn't go anywhere. So I would write them and tell them about everywhere I was going. We still send emails to each other, but we wrote really heavily for about 10 years on just wrote everything to each other back and forth. I think that's where I really got it. When I write it, I write like I'm telling somebody what happened. I like writing a letter to someone. I think of it like that.
That was such a great read. Thank you. And one of the great characters in the book, too, is the music, all the different references to music. And I just wondered, maybe you could talk about that a little bit. You thought about that a lot when you were writing the book.
Yeah, I love pop music, and I love like classical music. I love all kinds of music, but especially pop music. I was listening to it while like I played music while I was writing, but I could remember what I was listening to at the time, and so I would work it into the story, but I also used it as like a marker. So if you knew the song, you would know what time period it was. So it kind of grounds you in the time as the story moves along. So I did that on purpose.
Okay.
I remember you mentioned that there's an editor from this version. Was there something that changed drastically in this versus the earlier publication talking about?
No, it was a lot of typos and capitalizing, and there was a debate over whether to spell grade with an E or the word Florence with an S at the end or without an S. I thought a lot about it. I love the book pretty much the same. And as I'm reading it, I would like to change some of it now.
Updates, Eileen. Also, there's an introduction by Eileen in this book. That's something different. Talk of a screenplay.
Do you want to write one?
Like it for that. And also, do we know anybody who has lived longer with HIV than you? No.
There's people. I know some people.
Okay, well, it's also just sort of incredible. There's a whole chapter that still needs to be written. The next book,
Book number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a whole other trajectory that a lot of us have witnessed you, and it's so powerful. You know, it's the way you live and survive and made work. And anyway, that's. We talked a lot about another book. Can you talk about it a bit?
Well, I have notes and ideas and a few stories that I've completed, and it's more what I think of as more an inward journey instead of an outward journey, and a lot of it takes place at hospitals. And so one time when I've been sick, I kind of go to this plane that's in between here somewhere else in every whatever. But I had like these people and spirits who visit and watch over me. I've been writing those stories. You know, like once it's in the afterword, I write about when I was in the hospital and talk about my head turned into this face that looked down on me. And the hands were like a mustache, and there's a couple leather coats that turned into these stag eyes and some further and stuff like that. And they were all my friends while I was in that state, and they were watching out for me, and they wanted me to stay. When I was sitting there, they wanted me to choose an object in the room that I could move into, and I was like, I'm not ready to figure it out. I'm trying to get those stories together, you know, as well as like other things. That's what I'm focusing on right now.